All right, let's get started. So, good morning. Thank you for being here, finding the room despite the wrong name. I'm going to blame the low attendance on the organizers labeling the room incorrectly. That's my story and I stick to it. But thank you. So we're going to talk about the manager's guide to boosting developer productivity. Now, what comes to mind when you think about developer productivity? If you are like technical oriented, you will think about pipelines, you will think maybe about like processes. If you are into latest trends of productivity, you might think about, that should work. Here we go. Like fancy office and what's like latest Mac computers for developers. You might think about better coffee or noise cancelling earphones as a gift for everybody. And you might think, you know what, we're good. Apple is keep cracking awesome hardware. We buy everybody new Mac and everything is good. But it's actually not very good. The state of the industry as of 2023 is not great. The multipliers aren't coming back, right? So if you look at a potential exit, an IPO, an acquisition, it was very nice, the blue bars in 2021. It got much worse in the dark blue bars in 2022, and it didn't get much better in 2023. And obviously the developers know about that, especially those who came for this kind of equity to their startup and what's not, and they're like, it's not a good time to be in the industry. All the trend of back to office, after all the promises of how working from home is going to revolutionize our productivity, how we're going to be great working from home, all the reports of how people are much more productive when they're working from home, well, now everybody are, you know what? Forget all that. Never happened. Let's go back to the office. Well, people didn't forget. This is a survey of HR professionals who should know what their developers and workforce feel like. And you can see that there are only 40% that are comfortable to returning to the workspace. Most of the people don't want that. And if we talk about happiness, that's even less. People not only don't feel comfortable, they really passionately don't want to do it. But, you know, taxes implications, big corporations gave their word to the cities they're on that they're going to bring business to the downtown. They have to bring the business to the downtown, and it's going to cost them tons of money otherwise, so everybody are back to the office. And you all heard those stories that people moved away, and now they're like, well, we expect you to be 3 times a day in the office. Well, my office is 6 hours drive. Sorry about that. This is what we have in the HR system. You should go. I used to be in this situation when I moved to Nashville from Silicon Valley, and my closest office was in Atlanta. And they're like, okay, are you coming to the daily meeting? And I'm like, not really. Yeah, so yeah, this is bad. And obviously, you know, the elephant in the room, the layoffs. We are getting close to a very nice or very terrible, I should say, number of 500,000 people. 500,000 people laid off in the last 2 years in IT industry. And yeah, it kind of got a little bit better. We had the January last year, you remember. But you know what, the December 2023 here is misleading because Broadcom, because, well, should I say VMware, because Spotify, because, you know, it's a trend again. And obviously, this hurts productivity tremendously. Leadership IQ did a survey. This is 2008, like the previous layoffs thing, right? But I don't think anything changed since then. People feel anxiety and anger and guilt. This might look familiar for you, because this is exactly what people feel by a classic survivor bias. And the classic survivor bias is about people who survived others who died, but we have survivor bias than people that survived people who get laid off. And the feeling is exactly the same. And the great David Noer have an awesome book about exactly that. It's called Healing the Wounds, Overcoming the Trauma of Layoffs and Revitalizing Downsized Organizations. And it's exactly about that. So he called it layoff survivor sickness, and it's real. Now this is recent, this is from this year. 75% of layoff survivors say their work motivation has declined since layoff. And we all like, duh, obviously, but you know what? We expect them to still be productive. And this is again from the old one. Since the layoff, my personal productivity has declined. And it might be like, this is how I feel because I'm demotivated, but they also observe the colleagues and they notice the same thing. Since the layoff, from what I see, the productivity of my coworker has declined. This is much more objective and it's still terrible. And then 65% of layoff survivors say they're overworked since the layoff, obviously because they need to take all the work of the people that left. So they are demotivated. They feel anxiety and guilt, and we expect those people to be more productive than before. On that we add, okay, now break all your routines that you built in the last 3 years and start getting back to the office. And on that we add, well, the perspective of successful exit is not so great. Welcome to 2023. Now, the problem is that the latest news don't make it better. This is from this week. Spotify lays off people and their stock jumps. What is the conclusion for everybody? Hey, let's do more of that. So it is a clear conflict of happiness or productivity. Or maybe not. Let's see, how can we pick two? My name is Baruch Sadogurski. I'm J Baruch on whatever social media is called this week or trending this week. And I'm a developer productivity advocate with Gradle. We have awesome t-shirts, by the way, in the hallway. I mentioned that I moved to Nashville. This t-shirt, I literally screamed when I saw it, Johnny Cash. How cool is that? So if you didn't get it, please get it. I will take the rest home just because how awesome they are. Developer, longest time, 20 years ago. I worked in JFrog for 11 years, so we pivoted with JFrog to DevOps, and now with Gradle to developer productivity engineering. I wrote co-wrote a couple of books, DevOps Tools for Java Developers and The Liquid Software, about how we release software. The most important slide of this talk is this. If you go to speaking.jbaruch and note how I abused the Switzerland top-level domain here, very proud of that, you will find there like a page dedicated for this talk, and you will see the slides over there. They are already uploaded. The video that I'm recording, and Andre there on the back is watching that my phone is actually recording and not locked and stopped recording. And all the links are there, including all the surveys that I mentioned, everything that, layoffs, FYI, and all this stuff, it's already there. And everything that I'm going to mention is already there as well. Okay, so when we want to improve developers' productivity, oh yeah, and all this stuff is, in case you forget, in the bottom of every slide. So, a couple of hashtags: DPE for Developer Productivity Engineering, TLS for Tech Leadership Summit, my Twitter handle, and speaking.jbar. Okay, so we want to talk about developer productivity and happiness. Now, I spoke with a lot of engineering leaders and ask them, tell me what hurdles your engineers' productivity. What makes productivity slip? And I think this describes their answer pretty much. Every large organization is a big ball of mud. There are dependencies and connections that are not set up well, and this, the communication, the processes, and this is one of the biggest things. Like, that's ChatGPT describing enterprise as a big ball of mud. It's spot on. That's how it feels, this is how it's look. Technical depth, something that I mentioned earlier in the panel when we discussed refactoring. Technical depth, ThoughtWorks did a great report on how compromise your business, and it has a lot to do with developer productivity. So obviously stuff like customer experience, when because of technical depth we cannot release features faster, our customers suffer because they cannot enjoy our great software. Operational costs, we have to spend time in fixing our software when the software breaks instead of doing it proactively. And again, referring to Andre here, his talk on a couple of days ago in DevOps Vision actually ended up with slide, take time to schedule your machinery maintenance, because otherwise your machinery will schedule it for you. This is on point for technical depth. Revenue leakage, bugs, code quality, you need to fix it, people suffer from it, you pay the money for broken SLAs and what's not. And the last two pieces have direct to do with developer productivity, talent retention. Talent retention basically means, hey, people hate the software so much they're willing to leave. Now, before they're willing to leave, they actually suffer performance degradation because they hate the software so much. They won't be motivated or well-performing if the software is terrible. And then brand reputation, if they leave or just bitch about it everywhere, it obviously hurts your business as well, right? So technical depth is definitely something that hurts developer productivity. Analysis paralysis. The world is complicated. The IT software is incredibly complicated. Making educated decisions are very hard, and this obviously hurts productivity as well. And hey, so look at his smile. You see the backpack over there? He just arrived. This is why he smiles. He didn't try to set up his development environment or build his software in this remote location. I can guarantee you he won't smile anymore. Our entire tool chain was never built for remote work. No one thought about it in this way, no one engineered it this way, and it's a lot of times terrible. Try building your project, downloading the entire internet for Maven or Gradle and what's not, sitting over there with like your traditional satellite internet of like 2.5 megabits per second. Good luck. How about try to connect to VPN to get to whatever your enterprise systems? Maybe your VPN is even geographically locked. It was never designed that way. This obviously hurts productivity. Couple of more reasons which are also out there. Builds and tests are slow, right? This 90% of the organizations that we spoke about in Gradle say, hey, yeah, that's a real problem for us. And bunch of more, yeah, so we spoke about build and test, but also inability to easily troubleshoot and identify root causes of build failures, insufficient observability on analytics. We're going to speak a little bit about that. So all those are very technical reasons, but you know what else hurts productivity? Stupid people doing stupid shit. Yesterday, news. Bingy, they're in game dev, they are developers of Destiny 2, I have no idea. The only game I play is Civilization, so I have no idea what's going on there. But Look at that. Chief People Officer threatening people with layoffs if they don't deliver on time. How that makes people feel. What that does to productivity. I mean, I get it what she does it. She does that. And this is battle-proofed for ages. To put it another way, this is your carrot and stick. Right? If you don't deliver on time, I will fire you. Well, yes, it works on what? On donkeys. It even doesn't work on kids. You know that. It obviously doesn't work on software developers. Well, it's the same thing, but yeah, it does work on software developers. So, what does work? One of my favorite books of all times, I like this book much better than books that I wrote, called Drive by Daniel Pink. The surprising truth about what motivates us. What Daniel is saying is, yes, carrot and stick can work in certain scenarios. Those scenarios are very limited, and they are definitely not apply on intellectual workers, which IT allegedly is. Intellectual is an open question, but let's assume it is. What does work? 3 things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. What are autonomy, mastery, and purpose? Autonomy is the ability to execute by yourself. Mastery is excel by doing that. And purpose is doing it for a cause. When you think about it, it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense. Think about developers that work on a project that eventually got canceled. If we're looking at the carrot and stick, they couldn't care less. They got their payment. Everything is fine. Why do you care that all your code ended up in the garbage? But we all know that we do care about that. It's demotivating when we work towards something that eventually ended up in the garbage bin. It doesn't work for carrot and a stick. It works perfectly on autonomy, mastery, purpose. And what I want to bring into this framework of autonomy, mastery, and purpose is this thing that it's called developer productivity engineering. Now, what it is, developer productivity engineering? It's the engineering aspect of developer productivity. And developer productivity is a multifaceted thing, right? And we spoke about nice office and good coffee machines and being able to connect to our organizational systems. The technical parts of it is the engineering in developer productivity. Now, there are 7 tenets of how we engineer developer productivity. Well, you cannot engineer developer productivity. How we invest in the engineering part of developer productivity. First is foster faster feedback. This is about eliminating context switch, allowing focus, allowing the state of flow, and this kind of stuff. Eliminate toil for developers. This is, hey, I cannot connect to my VPN and I wasted 3 hours of that. This is toil that should be eliminated. Collaborate through effective tooling. I'm going to give you some examples of that. Prioritize automation and eliminate bottlenecks. This is something that we learn from DevOps and theory of constraints. In manufacturing, go throughout the gold, all the good stuff, right? So we eliminate bottlenecks through and prioritize automation. Rigorous observability and proactive improvement. Yet another one directly from DevOps. We do observability like champs now. We got it completely, but only for a production environment. We know exactly what's going on in production. No one knows that this developer in the middle of nowhere in Montana cannot connect to their VPN. No one knows about it until he complains. You know what? Maybe he decided he will never complain because his life is good over there without VPN. He's fine. Yes.
Video on?
Video on. Like a share screen on. It is.
Okay.
It doesn't work?
No, on Slack they're expressing sadness that your actual video, that they can't see you.
They cannot say me.
Video.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not something that they really want to, but you know what? No judgment here. There you go.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Now video. All right. Yeah, I tried to be like, do them a favor, but okay. Yeah, okay, right. So, yes, no one observes what's going on in our environments, and you know that's obviously a bad thing. Sorry. Yeah, outcomes over output. Software development generates a lot of noise, a lot. Finding the outcomes in all this output is something that we need to engineer, something that we need to build, something that we need to learn, and this will help. And dedicated organizational mindset. Dedicated organizational mindset, going to talk about that as well, what it actually takes and why it's important. So the way it ties with autonomy, mastery, purpose, and motivation, it actually matches perfectly. So autonomy, it's about the tools and people aren't in my way. I can work autonomously and do my thing without interruptions. And then mastery, tools and processes actually help me to excel. They don't hurdle me, but instead I work better through those tools and have mastery. And then purpose, well, productive has product in it. We want to be productive in order to produce something, and this is exactly our purpose as software developers. So that's a perfect match. Developer productivity is about motivation. So I want to go back to those tenets and give you a little bit of examples. So for example, foster faster feedback. What does it mean? What do we want and how do we achieve it? Well, the flow. Every developer wants to be in the flow as much as possible, and that's this state without interruptions where we're the most productive, fine things. But the build takes forever, and I distracted to do other things, and the context switch is terrible. We all know that the context switch is terrible because we experience it, but we also have scientific proof how terrible it is. Dr. Gloria Mark spent decades investigating attention span and context switching, and she released this year a bestseller that summarizes her research and what to do with it. Couple of outcomes from this wonderful book, unrelated to the specific topic of context switch, but still fascinating. We are checking our emails 77 times a day. Who realized that they do it 77 times a day? Anyone? No, right? But we do. How about our attention span has divided to about 47 seconds per screen. So when we check our email, we do it for 47 seconds and then we go to something else. And the most terrible in the context of foster faster feedback is this. It takes 25 minutes to return focus to a task after interruption. 25. Now let's say your build takes 10 minutes. Not great, not terrible. 10 minutes, okay, reasonable. There are some developers that will be very focused and they will stare for the output of the build for 10 minutes. Maybe. Most of the developers with our HDHD will switch to something else. And we'll get back to coding after 25 minutes. What does it mean? It means that our build is actually taking 25 minutes and not 10. Now, 25 minutes suck. But you don't know that. You think it's 10. This is too much time spent waiting on build and test and feedback, either locally or doing CI. 84%. Everybody suffered from that. Couple of examples on eliminating toil for developers and prioritize automation and eliminate bottlenecks. This is about things that are out there in the process, in the tooling, that are just frustrating, just driving people crazy. One of those things is flaky tests. Flaky tests are terrible. It's those tests that sometimes pass and sometimes fail, and no one really knows why. And they are terrible because If it just fails outright, you're gonna fix it. If it fails sometimes, you're not gonna fix it. Because it's probably not you, it's probably the infrastructure. And it fails only on CI, so it's definitely not you. It's the infrastructure people. And the infrastructure people go like, well, we don't know, it's just the test failing. What do you want from us? We build the infrastructure, they're under test, their tests are failing, let them fix the tests. So no one actually fixes it. And it annoys the hell of everybody, well, at least 65% of people. And it is terrible. Let's talk about other two. Rigorous observability and outcomes over outputs. Boiling the frog. You know how you buy your smartphone and it's blazing fast and after 2 years it's terribly slow? This happens to our processes and tools as well. We perceive them being slower, but without observability, we don't know. Is it just a bias? It's not a shiny new toy anymore, kind of got tired of it. Maybe it works exactly as fast, it's just our expectations reason. Yes? No? We have no idea. We don't have any numbers because we don't have sufficient observability and analytics. Again, like more than half, almost 60% agree that it's a problem. Collaborate through effective tooling, eliminate toil and outcomes over outputs. Another example, collaboration. What I mentioned, the big ball of mud. When the product is complicated enough, there are dependencies between different teams. And people end up touching infrastructure of other team that maybe wasn't supposed to be touched by other teams because how terrible it is. Within single team, we kind of figured out, right? We know what buttons not to touch and what screens not to look at, but other teams definitely don't know that. And then stuff like this happens. People send me screenshots of exception messages. I mean, how useful and productive it is? Well, it's not. What fixes it is collaboration through effective tooling. If instead of that, I can send them a pointer to the same error with the context, with everything they need to know in order to help me, they will be much more productive in helping me than not. Now, the beauty of all those 7 tenets and developer productivity engineering is that it provingly works. 84% of the teams that adopt developer productivity engineering and invest in those tenets actually report dramatical improvement in productivity. I'm not surprised that it works. It's engineering. Engineering works. It's not your human bullshit and that no one knows how it works. Engineering, you write something in, you get the results, you improve on them, they work. So this is a very, very easy problem to tackle as opposite to other aspects of productivity. Now, same 84% also mentioned something else. Developer productivity engineering foster developer joy. Now, this is my favorite slide in the world because it has the word joy on it. This is your ultimate productivity. There is nothing that you can aim more than joy. Let's talk about dedicated organizational mindset because this is what it takes. Now, when you start, you go back now, you sit in this talk. Thank you very much again for coming. And I got you excited. Maybe, hopefully. You come back, Monday to work, and you're like, it was a nice time in Florida. By the way, let's do this DP thing. It was great. I heard that it's great. And people are like, no. We can't. We're busy. We don't have money. We just fired everyone. We have hiring freeze. We have budget cuts. No, we cannot. We don't have any bandwidth to that. Now, this is not the first time you hear it, right? The previous time you heard it was about this. Was about Agile and DevOps. We don't have time to do that. We have a release to make. we're overworked. What did you say? Well, what did you tell them that? Make time because you will work better afterwards. And it's exactly the same with developer productivity engineering, but there is a difference. So let's compare Agile and DevOps kind of, working faster with Agile and DevOps versus developer productivity engineering. What is the outcome? The outcome of agilization, of being agile and implementing DevOps, is faster developing better product. The outcome of developer productivity engineering is more productive work and developer joy. They are different because product is on everybody's mind. It's absolutely clear that if I promise faster delivery of product in better quality, everybody will be obsessed with that. I don't need to do anything to kind of put everybody's mind on it. Developer productivity engineering, we spoke about it. Well, we fixed the build, and now instead of 10 minutes, it's 7 minutes. Yay, great. Let's forget about it. It's still 25 though, right? We know. But let's forget about it. Next thing we know, in a year, it's now not 10 even, it's 15. Because it slips away. We put attention on it because you came back, wonderful people on Monday, and said, let's everybody do that. Everybody did that, and then everybody forgot about it. This is why, as opposite to organization, to DevOps, or Agile, in which those concepts are a part of organizational culture, developer productivity engineering requires a specialized team. And the best developer productivity organizations out there actually build focus teams. You can see examples from Snowflake, hiring engineering manager, and LinkedIn, and we're going to talk about how LinkedIn does it in a second, hiring in productivity in IT, and Microsoft hiring engineering productivity people, Netflix, Elastic, and even Spotify that just fired a bunch of people actually bragging about how they improve developer productivity in their team by using specialized developer productivity teams. So yes, you need a special team, and this is we come back to we don't have the money for a special team. I have good news for you. You already have a special team for that. It's just called something else. It might be called a DevOps team, terrible name by the way. DevOps team does not exist. It might be called a platform team. It might be called core services team, infrastructure team, or even a build CI and release team. Whatever it is called, this is the team that needs to pay attention to developer productivity engineering because it fosters developer joy. Just love developer joy. Just love it. How about we rename this team to Developer Joy Team? That's the team I want to work with. What I mean to say is non-product team is a great place to start paying attention to developer productivity engineering and not letting go. Improving developer productivity engineering is an infrastructure aspect or a platform aspect or core services aspect. This is what this team should do anyway. They probably don't do it because you don't have the organizational mindset for it, and you should. Next question, after we figured out that someone has to do it, is, okay, how do we measure? Measuring productivity, welcome. It's going to be fun. Now, a couple of years ago, Dr. Nicole Forsgren, the author of the amazing Accelerate framework that brings us the annual State of DevOps report by Dora, she's excellent in measuring the unmeasurable. This is her take on measuring productivity. It's a framework called SPACE, and it suggests to measure productivity in 5 aspects: satisfaction, performance, activity, communication, collaboration, and efficiency and flow. So I'll just, a couple of those that are not very clear. For example, performance and activity. Performance is very end result oriented, like velocity, like how fast do we release, like what is our time to market, this kind of stuff. And activity is focused on more on the task in hand. For example, how good my code is. This is where refactoring comes in, architecture, technical depth. This is more about activity. So this is kind of a little bit unclear what they're about. Now, the fascinating thing is that managers and individual contributors define what productivity means in different terms. Managers look at performance. Obviously, this is what they care about. What is our team velocity? How fast can we release this feature? What will be in the end of this or next sprint? Individual contributors are focused on activity. How good my code is. Did I incur technical depth? This is obvious, but it's mind-blowing. And it brings us to the question, how we can measure something that we cannot agree on definitions. Max Kenneth Alexander leads the LinkedIn DP team. And we spoke with him in a great old show that's called The Lowdown, that you can find the link. Well, you know where to find the link. You go, does this thing work? No, it doesn't. You go to speaking.jbaruch, and the link will be right there to the show. And he speaks about how they measure productivity. The key takeaway is that it's quantitative and qualitative metrics. It means that just measuring some numbers isn't enough. Measuring some numbers is the default, because measuring some numbers is easy. Speaking to people and trying to understand what productivity means to them is actually much, much harder. But you have to do it because, remember, people don't agree on which number represents productivity. So what Max and his team is doing in LinkedIn. So the biggest problem with measuring productivity is defining productivity, as we just spoke. Different types of developers have different workflows and tooling needs. So you have teams, even of the same type, all of them are developers and want better quality code and like they are. Even if we look at the same metric on a space framework, even if we look only at activity, activity can be measured differently for different teams for very real reasons. And different types of problems can be solved on a different levels. Now, what does that mean? Leonid Igolnik, EXVP something something, the top technical authority in a company called Clary, speaks about levels of government. Federal, state, and local. Perfect analogy for a rather larger organization when there are things that need to be solved at the enterprise level, or a product level, or a team level. Different aspects of developer productivity fall into different layers of government. Yes, to create FEMA, you need federal government. To have a volunteer firefighter department, local is enough. Same with developer productivity engineering. Some things require federal level of implementation. Most of them, like far north than 90%, should be solved on a local level, but you need to ask those questions. So back to LinkedIn and to Max and to the Lowdown show, this is what he told us how they implement metric-based DP implementation. The first stage is identify and nominate. What does it mean? They go to different teams and they do surveys of performance and motivation. And they ask people, hey, what bothers you? As we mentioned, we cannot decide for them because we really don't know. because it's different for different teams and for different roles in different teams. So they really ask. Once they kind of have this picture, they nominate champions. We spoke about champions in the panel. This is exactly the same idea. Now, the reason why we nominate, well, it's important to remember that we ask everybody, because we don't want the loudest people to steal the conversation. But once we asked everybody and we figured out the problem, we can pick the loudest person to advocate for this problem, because we will need to work with them, and working with one person is generally easier than working with the entire team. So we nominate the champion, and this champion is going to advocate for this problem in our DPE team during the solution of this particular problem. Ask and manage and measure. Now, the two aspects. We can ask the champion, hey, how is this supposed to work and what can we improve? And then we can actually measure the thing, because then it becomes something measurable. For example, our build is too slow. This is something we can, first of all, we didn't know that it's a problem, but now when we asked you, we actually know. And now we can go and measure. Boom, we start to collect local build times, just drawing in our Prometheus, and magic, we have a Grafana dashboard that shows the build times of the entire organization. And we're like, oh shit, we didn't know. But now we do, we asked, and now we can measure. Prioritize and improve. Optimizing not at the bottleneck. It's not optimizing at all. My other favorite book of all times, The Goal by Eliyahu Gortrat. This is golden. If we decided to optimize something that is not the bottleneck, we didn't help anyone in anything. We just wasted time. Prioritization, finding what's the bottleneck, is the key. And once we have that, we're off to improving it. You have slow build times. What do? Gradle, thank you for paying for me being here. You buy Gradle the Velocity. That was my product pitch. Thank you very much. You have other problems? You know, by the way, we have a booth and there are wonderful people there that will tell you more, not me. You have other, this is not the bottleneck, don't buy, sorry, Gradle, you didn't hear it. Do something else. Do solve your bottleneck. And then you evaluate, did it actually help? We improved our build time from 10 minutes to 7 minutes, did it help? No, because 25 minutes, context switch, all this stuff, we improved it from 10 to 2. Now no one context switches, and it's really 2. We did improve it. Perfect. Now we need to show wins. This is as much important as everything else. People need to know that we improved it. And not only the people who actually get benefit from it, they will notice for sure, but also everybody else. This goes back to organizational mindset. In order to maintain the interest, in order to maintain the money, the budgets for our developer productivity engineering initiatives, people need to know what we do. The entire organization need to know, and this is why presenting our wins is so important. And then we can implement this in other teams as well. Obviously, taking down our build time from 10 minutes to 2 minutes is great for everybody, and we can implement it further. Right? So, just to summarize, engineer your engineer success with developer productivity engineering. It improves morale, as we spoke. It covers productivity gaps that were created by layoffs and stuff. It is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the organization, because we will create better products faster and bring more business value, but it is also the right thing to do for employees. We want to be good organizations, good employers, so this is very, very important. But we need to remember that it slips away and it requires an organizational mindset and dedicated effort. The Developer Joy team, this is what we aim for. Now, the problem is that it's terrible to be measured because humans and people perceive productivity in different ways. And what you need to do is you need to ask. You need to ask the developers, once you ask, you can start measuring, not before. Defining scope, federal, state, local, where this problem should be solved. As with government, the more local, the better. Same idea, try to stay local and only go up if you have to. Prioritize and don't try to boil the ocean. This is where you will fail. If you go like, hey, we're going to now DPE the hell of our entire enterprise, let's do everything at once. Yeah, this is how you fail. It's very important to prioritize, only optimizing bottlenecks, start with small teams, forward-looking teams, the teams that need it and want it, and go from there. Use existing infrastructure resources. We don't have the money for it, don't worry about it. You already have the team that should have done that, and now all we do is switching focus. Yeah, and small wins to promote the cause, as we already mentioned. Organizational mindset requires this constant positive reinforcement. This is great, we're making progress, we're doing great. And, well, we should do great in order to tell that we are doing great, but if we do great, we need to talk about it. So with that, learn more and try today. Take the Grail and Maven Speed Challenge, and this will just speed up your build, or your developers, send them there, and they will win prizes, and we all want them to win prizes. Be the DPA agent of change. This is you. This is what you should be. And if you go to speaking.jbaruch, you'll find a link there to our Influentive portal, when there are tons of resources of how you can be the DPA agent of change. DPA handbook is also there. This is by Hans Doctor, the founder of Gradle. And watch the DP Summit videos, including, by the way, Max talk that he delivered in September in our DP Summit in San Francisco. He spoke about the same thing, but also watch the lowdown that I mentioned, and it's all here or there in the mobile. With that, thank you very much. We have actually 10 minutes for questions. I'm at JBaruch everywhere. This is Tech Leadership Summit. We spoke about DPE, and you go to speaking.jbaruch for the slides, the video, all the resources that we spoke about. Thank you. Questions? Or we can just be the first at the break. Fine with that. Yes?
So when you're trying to sell the idea of developer productivity engineering to people in decision-making capacities, how do you fight sort of pushback that comes in the form of, well, that's all well and good to want developer joy, but I just care about deadlines, money, and my perception is that this grinding mentality of,
Yeah.
row.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so Valerie asked, how do you work with the objection is that, people just don't care. You tell them, hey, this is important, we have a proof, we have resources, we have research, we have, we for know sure that if you have productive developers, you will get better product faster, but you need to invest. And the boss says, well, no. Just go do your fucking job. Just write some code, do something. Well, yeah, what do you say to that? So, frankly, if you presented it well enough, went through the motions of research, metrics, you spoke with people in front of it, you know exactly what it does, you can prove the impact of whatever slow process and bottlenecks, and the answer that you get from your boss still is, I don't care, it's not a great time for look for a job, but maybe you should anyway. I mean, in the end of the day, there are just, why engineers love their computers and don't like to work with people? Because it would never happen when you work with the machine. You get an input in that's supposed to get the right output, you will get the right output. People, not so much. You can be as persuasive as you want to be, and this schmuck just will go, no. What can you do? In the end of the day, I have a talk about that. It's called Influencing for Developer Productivity Engineering Without Authority. All of you are with authority. We're in Tech Leadership Summit, but obviously the authority is not absolute. There was always someone up there that you need to persuade, and you don't have the authority over them. What I show in this talk is basically a summary of two great books. And you notice a pattern about me and great books. So one of them is Influencing Without Authority by Brentwood and Cohen. And it has a model, 6-step model of how you influence people. Very straightforward. You do that and you should get results. The problem is, people. Sometimes it works, most of the time it works, sometimes it just doesn't. And then another great book that is also part of this talk is Getting to Yes. And it's working through those objections of, you know what, no. How about no? Again, it works most of the time, not all the time. If you do everything correctly, if you do everything by the book, pun intended, and it doesn't work, then it's probably the wrong person in the room, and it's probably you, so you should just leave. Yeah.
To add to that, it kind of feels like at the local level, though,
Yeah.
a lot of this, right? You know, instead of, like, to your point, getting buy-in from leadership can be very challenging. Proving it out at the local level is
Love it, love it, absolutely, yes. We spoke about federal, state, and local. If you're going to the president to convince them that you need a volunteer firefighting brigade in your village, they will probably tell you just go away. And instead you just go and grab volunteers and you have a firefighter brigade, right? That's very true. But in the end of the day, also remember of organizational mindset. You need to have people that are obsessed with developer productivity engineering at all times, and this requires budgets and effort. So you need a buy-in on some level. You might have resources on very local. You definitely should have resources and like a second on a state level. You know, if you manage to convince federal that you need like a FEMA for DPE, great. If you don't, well, chances are you will be fine on a state or maybe sometimes local level as well. Yeah. More questions? Okay, so if people on Zoom have questions, I have the chat open, you can ask there. But otherwise, thank you very much.